very corporate ICT. And I was like, literally my next coworker.
All right. Is it 7?
It is getting there. 59.
All right. It's going to start.
Okay.
It's going to start. 7 o'clock. Okay. You ready? I'm not supposed to, you can't stand there because I got to introduce you and you got to come up. That's how it works.
Yes.
All right. And I have to read. All right. I'm so glad that you're all here. Thank you for coming. Welcome to the Marketing Automation and AI Meetup. We're so glad you could make it today. So I have to tell you some housekeeping rules, and then I'll introduce our featured speaker, Georges Colbert. The meetup goes from 6:30 to 8:30. We have the speaker, Georges, from 7 to 7:45, 15 minutes for Q&A. It can go a little over till 8, and then 8 to 8:30, last minute, last networking, questions, mingling, cleanup. Then we have a hard stop at 8:30. Parking is in the building. You get a discount. It's $8. Emily Hyatt, our venue coordinator, will give you a sticker, so don't forget to get it, okay? Let's see what else. We want to say thank you to the Capital Factory who sponsors us, gives us this lovely room. So if anybody wants to be a member of the Capital Factory, see Emily or go on their website, because they're the center of gravity for entrepreneurs in Texas, right? Or in Austin, I should say.
Texas.
So I'm thanking them. I thanked them twice. And now we're going to get to him. So now I want to introduce our speaker. His name is Georges Colbert. I met him at AITX's inaugural meetup, I think last year, and I've known him fairly well for the last 6 months. He's a visionary twice over in the prop tech arena and a seasoned expert with over 6 years of experience in crafting AI applications tailored for the real estate industry. As the founder of Albatroz.AI, Georges pioneers an AI assistant dedicated to optimizing the management of inbound leasing for real estate businesses. This innovative AI solution has become indispensable for a wide array of real estate professionals, including apartment communities, realtors, and handymen, among others, streamlining operations and enhancing efficiency across the board. As the former co-founder of JobCall, a pioneering voice AI assistant designed for maintenance calls, Georges has revolutionized property management for over 10,000 apartments across Texas and Florida. His journey continued through significant roles, including a stint as a machine learning engineer, data scientist at Homesnap, culminating in its acquisition by CoStar in 2020. In his talk, Georges will offer an in-depth look at Albatroz.AI, showcasing the unparalleled advantages of integrating AI into every facet of property management, from marketing to maintenance and leasing. Discover how AI can streamline your operations, enhance efficiency, and elevate the customer experience in the real estate sector. Without further ado, help me welcome Georges Colbert.
All right, let's see. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. As she said, my name is George. Today, I'm going to talk to you about AI and real estate. Now, what I've tried to do is I've tried to keep it a little casual and fun, let's say. Essentially what I'm going to do is talk about AI, the different types of AI application that can be built specifically. And then I'm going to try to highlight examples of how you could build that AI application in real estate. I have a few fun videos, a few demonstrations that I'm going to do. One of the aspects of it that I would love it if it was interactive, but it's up to you guys, is for every type of AI application, I'd like you guys to come up with an example of how could you use that AI application, whether it's in real estate or just in general. And you'll see how I've broken it down, and it'll make sense going forward. All right, so let's get started. I want to give you a little bit of background about myself. Obviously, I'm Georges Colbert. I went to University of Maryland. I studied information systems, but did both my bachelor's and my master's there. Is anybody here from Maryland? No. Yep, 2 people. Woo! Yes, 3. Yes. Okay. Yes. Awesome. Yes. So yeah, I spent most of my I guess teenage over to adult life in Maryland. I think like most of you realize that Austin was the next spot to be. So I also assume like most of you, I moved here during the pandemic. It's been a wild ride since. I love Austin. Wanted to give you guys a few ideas of some of the AI projects I worked on, so some background on me. Obviously, the latest one that I'm working on is Albatroz.AI. Albatroz.AI is an AI assistant for real estate leads. Specifically, what that means is the AI assistant, if a lead comes in and interacts, let's say calls or emails a business, the AI assistant can intercept that call, identify this person as a lead, try to notify the team immediately, hey, you just got a lead, and essentially kind of nurture that lead until somebody's ready to close there. Before that, I had built an AI assistant for maintenance calls. Very similar to Albatroz. The key difference there is if you tell people you're going to help them with their leads, that means you're going to help them make more money. They're a lot more interested. Maintenance, I mean, when's the last time you got excited about doing maintenance, right? So that was a realization at that point. Before that, I worked at Get Done as an ML engineer. The key AI project that we worked on there was a computer vision project. Specifically, it was when contractors would finish a job, they would submit images. Big problem I'm sure some of you have had with contractors is they wouldn't necessarily do the job that well, so you'd always have to review, and a lot of times you'd have to ask them to come back. And so when you were doing this at scale, let's say you're an apartment complex, you have all these contractors coming and going in every apartment. Sometimes things might slip. You might forget, hey, we sent the guy to paint, apartment 202. We never checked it until the renter moved in, and then they're complaining. And so instead of having somebody monitor every job done or monitor every image submitted, one of the things we're trying to do is say, hey, when a contractor finishes a job, we ask them to submit detailed images of the job that they did, and then you would build an AI assistant that would kind of look at the image and try to understand, hey, is this job done up to par or not? And the idea there is, of course, of saving time from a property manager and saying, hey, let's say of the 5 jobs that were done today, this person submitted, and this is true, person submitted a picture of their kids, i.e. you probably should go check that job because they didn't submit what you asked for. This person submitted an image of the, let's say it's the bathroom, it's completely clean, it's refurbished, you probably don't need to review it, or you can wait until last minute to review it. So that was kind of the idea behind the job done at Get Done. Before that, actually it should be a little backward. Before Get Done, I actually worked at ClearStep. ClearStep was also an AI assistant, and the key aspect there is somebody would describe the issues that they're having health-wise, like, hey, I don't know what's wrong with me, I have sharp pain in my stomach, my throat is killing me, my head is throbbing, et cetera, and an AI assistant, by listening to that, would identify what the symptom was. So this is abdominal pain, this person is describing sore throat, this person is describing, I don't know, early onset dementia, let's say, and then based upon that, route that person to a specific workflow, whether that's just, just a headache, take a Tylenol, or this is serious based on what you're describing, it's appendicitis, you need to go to the hospital, whatever it is. So that was an NLP project. And then before that, I worked at Homesnap. Homesnap was I guess you can compare it to Zillow, let's leave it at that. And then the key product that I worked there was an AI application that could look at the historical data of any given home and try to predict if that person was going to list their home within the next year. The benefit of that was for a real estate agent. If you're looking at any given neighborhood and you're trying to drum up business, before something like this, you'd probably just market to everybody. With a product like this, the hope was you could understand, hey, based upon the amount of equity this person has in the home and how long they've owned the home, and I don't know, hey, their kid, by the way, just graduated, let's say, highly likelihood this person is going to list, you can target your advertising to this person. So instead of advertising everywhere, you can be a little more targeted in your ads. So that's my background. The way I'm going to break up the speech today is I'm going to try to go over what predictive AI is, what are some of the applications that you could see in the real world, and what generative AI is, and what does that mean in terms of the key product that we can build, and try to tie it all up into real estate. As I mentioned, as you can clearly see, I build a lot of applications in real estate, and it is like my second interesting thing that I like to follow up on aside from AI. And then of course with a last quick summary. All right, so gonna go first into predictive AI. So the quickest, shortest way to think about what predictive AI is, it's really just taking data as an input and then predicting an outcome that you will then make a business decision on it. Straightforward, right? What I'm going to try to do is actually give you guys a high-level explanation of how every single one of these AI applications work. So I know this looks scary, but it probably also looks familiar. I mean, most of you, I assume, took stat in college or in high school, right? Congratulations, that part of that was AI. Like, no kidding. I mean, so obviously there's more complicated models than a simple linear regression, but for a lot of AI applications, so by the way, we're calling this traditional machine learning. And traditional machine learning is just, you're looking at, think of an Excel sheet, and then rows and rows of numbers, and trying to make a prediction for every single row. So that would be traditional ML. The two formats of traditional ML that you guys are probably familiar with, one, of course, is the simple linear regression. You guys remember it's y equals a plus bx plus cx plus dx, whatever. That is one way that you can actually predict a number, which does fall under the branch machine learning. And I'll go into some examples of how this style of machine learning can be used. Another one, of course, is logistical regression. Maybe not as familiar as linear, but the concept is pretty much the same. It's you have an x variable, you have a y outcome number, and you have some number that you multiply it, right? I like to use this, image. Imagine x being the distance that you are from the center of the city, and then y being how likely are you to be, let's say, a Republican. So you can imagine as you move the x from 0, where if you're literally at the right center, and think about y as the probability that you're a Republican, your probability that you're a Republican if you live right in the middle of the city is essentially 0. But as you move towards the right, and the x, meaning your distance from the center of the city, increases, the probability that you are a Republican increases, right? So you can think of it as that, as a logistical regression, simple formula that you could use to literally do AI to predict, hey, is this person one political affiliation or another? So right now, I'm going to go over some examples of how you could use that. Same thing, right? If you guys can come up with ideas of okay, here's how I would use a linear regression to predict a number, or here's how I'd use logistical regression to classify two categories, feel free to share. I'm going to go over with some ones that in my head I think would be cool applications, specifically in real estate. One would be forecasting demand. So who here owns a property? Okay. How many of you guys rent it out? Okay, cool. So one of the key things about renting a property might be what is the best time to, let's say, put it on the market, right? One of the difficulties about doing something like that is let's say you put it out in July. Everybody knows roughly, if you put it out in the summer, you're going to get a lot more leads than if you put it out in the winter, right? But it would be cool if you could have the data to tell you, well, if you were to list it on this specific date versus another, how much demand you could do. So go back to that example I talked about linear regression. Think about X just being all different types of variables, from the number of clicks that Zillow gets on any given month, right? How big is this house, whatever. And then you add up all those different variables, you come up with a number that says, if you're picking July, you can expect to get this many leads from it. You could probably flip that to say, if you were to list it in July, this is how much rent you could probably collect. If you were to list it in August, this is how much you could collect. And you could just run that algorithm and see, okay, can I accurately assess which month should I try to put it in order to maximize, and let's get in one scenario, the number of leads I get, and the other, how much rent I can ask. Another one that would be cool, let's say if you own the property, would be the likelihood that this person is going to renew it. You don't even need to worry about putting it on the market. So for stuff like that, if you really think about it intuitively, you can probably already see some patterns like, okay, this is how much this person is paying me in rent. This is how often they're having a maintenance request. This is how long their lease term is. And you could put all those numbers together and say the probability that when that they renew when the lease is over is 0, 1, or everywhere in between, right? And then a real life example of this obviously is the Zillow's estimate, which is probably the most popular application of machine learning in real estate. Everybody here at some point has looked up either their house or a friend's house to see, are they going to make money off this or are they not? You know, so definitely one of the funnest and most provocative things about Zillow. And I actually want to then show you this quick 3-minute, 4-minute video. It's the founder of Zillow explaining how they got together to put the estimate. So I'll show it to you guys. And then in the meantime, yeah, if you guys can think of ideas of like, hey, here's how I would use logistical regression to classify these two type of categories, real estate or not. Let's see. So let's see if we can open it. All right. So I'll just play the first 3 minutes of it.
You're being super humble. When I meet with startups, I would like to just double click on this one immediately because I think you're being super humble. When I meet with startups and they ask me, hey, I want to do earned media. I want to earn some media. I don't want to just hire a PR firm. I want to have a strategy. And you know what the first thing I tell them to look at? Zillow and this estimate. Because I met your CMO. Remind me of her name.
Amy Batinsky. She's on our board now, but yeah.
Amy. And she spoke at a couple of my conferences. I interviewed her on this podcast, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago. You came up with the ultimate earned media for Zillow. Maybe you could explain, because she's explained it to me, and I have some broad strokes here, but from your perspective as the founder, CEO of Zillow, maybe talk about how you created Zestimate and then the local reports, which then let you literally take over every quarter on a rolling basis a local news cycle for real estate, which is adult porn, basically.
All right, so there's a ton in there.
Yes.
Amy's just brilliant. There's a ton in there, and I could reach back and give a little context about how we got there, and then I'll tell you about it if you really want to get the story.
Yeah,
it goes back to another bestie of the pod, Bill Gurley.
Oh, Bill Gurley.
Bill Gurley led our A-Run and is a good friend, and I was a venture partner at Benchmark for 17 years, so I'd done a bunch of stuff with Bill and those folks. And we were early as Zillow. We didn't even have the product quite down yet. This is in 2006. And I had just come off selling Expedia to Barry Diller. I had taken Expedia public when I was 32 years old, back in 1999. Even you remember that.
Yeah. Yep.
That was when, dogfood.com could literally go public.
We'll get into the Expedia story. That's a fascinating one.
I had taken Expedia public, and I was used to spending advertising money. And as we were getting ready to launch Zillow, Gurley said, hey, Rich, what if you had a $0 ad budget? Then what would you do? And I was like, okay. What would I do? I was like, that's impossible. Of course you can't do that. But like all BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals, you think at first it's impossible. Then you go away and think about it for a little while, and you start to shoot the stuff with your friends, have a couple beers, and think, oh, well, how might we do that? And so we basically ended up taking this project that turned into Zillow and pivoted towards creation of this estimate, which most of your listeners and viewers out there know.
Everybody knows.
Yeah. Okay, everybody knows, but it was...
Everybody knows. You gave an estimate on the price of a home, and you did that through looking at recent sales in the home, and then whatever data you had on the home that you had licensed, if I understand correctly, licensed a bunch of data.
Yep.
And it infuriated people because everybody believes that their house is worth 10% more than whatever the highest priced house that just sold is. And so then they all went to you and said, how dare you? I'm going to sue you, I'm upset, my house is worth $67,000 more than this, and then all of a sudden they know Zillow, they've logged in and claimed their home.
Yes. I would say I wouldn't be quite so negative on it and say, yeah, there was some negativity to it, but it was very provocative. So we used AI,
Yes.
we used AI to create the originals estimate long ago.
Yeah.
And we figured out we dropped this price on every house in the country and updated every night. And it would be provocative from look up your old girlfriend's, from high school where she's living now, what that house is worth. We had a lot of that. We had a lot of, that's not right, just like you said.
Yeah.
We had a lot of, hey, I'm actually looking for a home right now and I want to know what the hell that thing's worth. And so it was this interesting intermingling of the kind of titillating and the pragmatic, which is a wonderful sweet spot to be if you're building consumer product. If you can really get emotionally involved with your customer, with the product, but also be super pragmatic at the same time, you're really digging in the right spot, in my opinion.
So there was some tension stuff back up, because when you talk, I mean, I've listened to 3 or 4 of your interviews in preparation for this, and I listened to Ken.
I think that's enough. But you guys get the picture, right? What I love about what he talks about is not just, okay, they built some AI tool, which, funny enough, even they'll admit is not that accurate, but it's how they built an AI tool that had such an impact, right? In part because it was provocative. All of a sudden, what are some of the things people care about a lot, right? Of course, their health, their social status, and part of that, of course, is the value of their home. So imagine 1999, you're walking around in your house, one day your friend comes over and says, hey, it turns out your house is worth $100K less than when you bought it for. Like, obviously you'd be pissed, right? But by being pissed and going on Zillow and looking at it and contesting it, you're in fact giving them what they want, which is eyeballs, right? Now you're going to your friends and you're like, can you believe this random startup Zillow has the nerve to tell me my house is worth $100K less? But what are you doing? You're promoting Zillow. So it's one of the cool things I like about what he did there, which is not just building that AI application and worry about how accurate it is, but build it in such a way that hey, it's gonna drive eyeballs, it's gonna drive demand. And literally, I think most people, Zillow of course does a bunch of things, but most people when they think about Zillow, they think about what's the value of this home, of this person that I like or don't like, right? So before I go into the next one, remember I had said, if you guys had any ideas about what it will look like to do traditional ML, anybody have an idea? I know, of course, I'm putting you guys on the spot, so I don't expect you to have a real fleshed out idea, but just kind of curious, does anybody have an idea?
Financial forecasting.
Financial forecasting is exactly that. So like, let's say you have a multi-family apartment, you own an apartment complex, or let's say you want to buy the apartment complex, better. You want to know, hey, based upon the occupancy rate in the neighborhood, based upon the population movement, based upon the number of college graduate, how much money am I going to make from this apartment 3 years from now? As you can probably imagine, there's going to be a lot of multifamily builders who created these models in 2020 when everybody was moving here, and they were thinking, hey, all these people are moving here, all these people are high-paying jobs in Apple. My financial forecasting tells me that these apartments, we're going to be renting them out to like these techie college grads making $200K. We're going to make a ton of money. Obviously, everybody knows a little bit what's happening now. It's not no longer the case. These companies are laying people off. I think either it's Google or Apple decided not to open the office. So you can imagine how many people who had predicted in their models, all these Google and Facebook employees, they're going to be renting my apartment. Now all of a sudden they're no longer that. So it's a very interesting aspect. While you guys are thinking through an idea, I wanted to kind of look at logistical regression, and let's use this as an example. Okay, you have a room full of random adults, right? And you're trying to just, based upon the characteristics, try to predict, hey, this person is renting versus this person owns their own home. What are some characteristics that you guys would use, if you had to guess, that you could separate out between a renter and an owner?
Age.
I like age, right? So like, let's say age, what's the variable? Is it the older they are, the more likely to own, or they're more likely to rent?
More likely to own.
That's a pretty obvious one, right?
Women are more likely to own their home than men.
That's a very interesting one as well, yes. So you could look into any given room and you can say, hey, yeah, if they're, it's a very interesting stat, I've actually seen that. I wonder why that is.
Divorce.
Divorce, okay, I'll do it. Yeah. She'll keep the house, yeah, that'll definitely do it right there. Yeah. What are some other characteristics that you could think of that you say, if you were to split it between this person and this, they're more likely to own a home or not?
Say have kids.
Do you have kids? Yeah, that's a very good one. Now, I would say, unfortunately, maybe, yeah, there are some people who like have kids and still have to live in the city, but you know if they could, they would go to a house, right? Like everybody who has a child, they want a suburb, they want a backyard, they want, what do you call it, those single family regions. I think you had one, right?
Income.
Income is a good one as well, yes. Well, of course, there are always these high earners who rent. For the most part, it is still kind of the American dream of owning your own place, right? So for a lot of people, as soon as they have the cash for that down deposit, they're going to want to own, whether it's a condo or whether it's a home, it's still viewed as that first step. And definitely the richer you are, the more likely you are, if you're not renting, at least own property in some way. Go ahead.
Number of vehicles.
Number of vehicles is a good one. Yes, if you don't own a single car, you are not living in the suburb. That is a tough life. If you have to Uber every day, so that you could almost say literally, if that person owns one vehicle, it increases a lot. If they own 2 or 3, I mean, what are they paying that multifamily apartment 3 parking spots? No, they're probably just storing them in their garage. Go ahead.
Maybe distance from the city.
Distance from the city is a good one as well. I don't imagine there's large apartment complexes outside of the city, right? At least I haven't seen any like that. So that's a good one. We don't have to keep going, but if anybody has any other ideas about things that you could use to separate between a renter and an owner. See, we've done age, we've done, what do you think about education?
Yeah, I was gonna say education.
Education, is it the more educated, the more likely you to own a home? Right, I think most of us would agree, you know?
Money, usually, the income and education kind of go hand in hand.
Definitely. Do you think political affiliation would do it? You know, is it easy to say? I mean, I see you're shrugging, and I kind of agree. I mean, I know plenty of Democrats own a home, and I think I know plenty of Republicans. They're kind of secret who live inside a city. They don't want to identify themselves, so not if they live inside the city. But yeah, what could be another one? All right. Anyways, let's keep moving. So we went over traditional ML, predictive ML. Let me see how am I doing for time. Oh shit, 30 minutes. Okay, I gotta go faster. Okay, never mind. My bad, guys.
We only have, we will.
Yeah, I gotta speed it up. All right. So predictive NLP. What is that? That is specifically looking for pattern in words. So I have this image over here, and I want you guys to take a look at it. And I'm going to try to explain what does a computer do in order to classify a text, let's say. So you have 4 different categories: art, business, culture, entertainment. Now, you can imagine this because you could probably do it yourself. Let's say you didn't even speak the language, right? But as you were looking at a lot of business documents, you saw the word chef d'entreprise a lot. Like, regardless of whether you can spell it out, you just realize there's a pattern of words that spell out chef d'entreprise, and they're always going into business. So let's say you come up with a new document and you see that word. What are you likely to do?
Put it in the same category.
Put it in the same category as business, exactly. Now, let's say that you're looking at entertainment documents in Spanish, and then you see, I'm throwing a random word, fiesta a lot, right? I mean, everybody knows fiesta, so that's not a good one. Well, let's stick to it. Yeah, fiesta a lot, right? Now, you may not understand what that word is, but you're seeing in a lot of these entertainment documents, that word pops up. So when somebody shows up with a new document and say, hey, what do you think this is? You see the word fiesta, what are you likely to do? Classify it as entertainment, right? So it's exactly what a computer does when it's classifying a document. Here I have a few examples of how you would do predictive NLP. The most obvious one would be classifying a property based upon the description. So at a high level, imagine there's somebody saying, hey, what are you looking for in your next home? And they're saying, hey, I want to be close to my yoga studio, and I want to have Starbucks within walking distance, and I don't know, I want to have my dog park next to me. As you're hearing that, you're probably thinking, I mean, I'd assume most of you think this person wants a, what do you guys think, apartment or a home? Apartment, right? Now, if you hear somebody talking, you say, hey, what are you looking for your next home? And they describe it as like, you know, I want to have a lot of space. I'm looking for a 3-bedroom. I definitely need a yard. You're more likely to say, okay, based upon that, this person is looking for a house, right? So that's an example. Another one would be sentiment analysis. So let's say you own your properties. Let's say you own multiple properties, and your goal is you want to renew. You want your tenants to renew. The key thing you want to keep track of is that they're not too pissed off by the team managing the property that they're going to leave at the first chance they get. Sentiment analysis would be that as you're looking at the communication between your tenant and your team that's managing your property, you have the AI system in such a way that if at any given point it picks up, hey, this person is pissed off, and this is the 3rd, 4th, 5th message that we've gotten, that we've seen from them that seem to indicate pissed off, then you know, okay, I've got one of my tenants that's pissed off. If I really want them to renew, let me intercept, right? So an idea of how that can be done. HappyCo is a live company that kind of does something similar for maintenance. So it's more like you describe what the issue is, like, you know, hey, my toilet is backed up, let's say, right? It'll classify that as plumbing and then route it to the correct worker. JobCall, as I mentioned, I was at one of the companies that I worked on before, was exactly like that. You would interact with it, and an assistant, you would describe the issue, and then it would classify it. Because of time, I'm probably going to skip the JobCall promo video, fortunately. But this is an interesting one because I think most people do not understand how a computer reads an image, and it's actually pretty simple when you look at it at a high level. So let's take this image of a pelican. When you take a picture of let's say a pelican or just anything, imagine that actually what's happening is 3 different images are being taken. A completely red image, a completely green image, and a completely blue image. And then when you think about those individual images, you think about pixels. Well, pixels, as far as the computer is concerned, is actually just an array. And do most people understand what an array is? Roughly, right? And what pixels are actually an array that tells you, like the first one is the intensity of the blue in that pixel. The second number is the intensity of green, and the third number is the intensity of blue, right? So let's look at this number, what do you want to call it? Slides, whatever. Let's look at the top left corner, right? What it's telling you is that 253, that's a very intense blue. 14, that's a medium level green. 155, that's a semi-intense, 253 is a very intense red. 14 is a not as intense green. 165 is a semi-intense blue. And that's essentially what an image is. It's just those 3 numbers stacked on top of each other. A pixel is specifically an array of those 3 numbers. And what you're telling the computer essentially when it's doing the image is like, put this much green, this much red, this much blue, and when you put it all together, why do you have an image of a pelican? And so now you can start to understand when a computer is looking at images and it's looking for patterns, how does it identify it? Well, it's through the pixels. It looks at the combination of numbers when it comes to these arrays, and it sees the order that they're organized in, and then it starts developing a rule that says, hey, if the pixel in the middle is this much green and red and blue, and then on the other side it's this, all this adds up to a pelican. So a few examples of predictive CV. The most obvious one if I could, I would have it done ASAP, is a common area rule offender application. Let's be honest, how many of you here have stepped in dog poop, right? Yeah. And were you not pissed at the person who left the dog poop behind? Now, the key thing about this is that this, poo bandit, if you want to call him, literally was just like, saw the poo happen, realized there was nobody around, and just kind of left it for somebody else to worry about. But if you had cameras in the apartment building, you could instantaneously see, okay, this dog is the one that left the poo, and associated with this owner, I'm about to jack up your rent by 20% or something like that. At least that's what I would do. Now, granted, I've heard that some people are worried about, that eye in the sky looking at them, but I look at it as if we had something like this, we'd be walking on less dog poop. And most of us would want that. Another idea is move-out inspections. So back to the idea of this time, let's say you have an apartment complex during the summer. You have plenty of move-outs happening. And at the same time, you have a lot of people that are going to move in. Now, same thing about saving time. Are you going to walk through every single apartment to assess the situation that was left and then decide, hey, looks like I'm going to need a painter, a refurbisher, a plumber, or whatever, which obviously takes up time? Or could you try to leverage AI and say, hey, when you're leaving the house, take a video or an image of everything that final state that you are, and then use computer vision. It's going to look at previous examples of this is what the room looks like when it's clean, this is what the room looks like when it's not, in order to assess, hey, looks like you're going to need to hire a mover for this apartment, or looks like this person left the apartment in a pristine state, or hey, that wall, it looks, whatever, the color looks off, looks like you're going to need to hire a painter. I want to do a live demo of this, and then following that, I do want to get back into see if you guys have ideas of how we could, what am I doing? Sorry. Okay, there it is. So here is an example. I'm just going to use ChatGPT for it. So that, let's say you're moving out an apartment. All right. So here, let's imagine this person submits this image of their bathroom. And then you tell ChatGPT or AI application, you are working for the property manager, you are reviewing move-out images submitted by a tenant to see if it's emptied out, if they emptied out the bathroom, or if they left stuff behind and you'll have to hire a cleaner. Look at this image of a bathroom. Will the property manager have to hire cleaners? And so you would ask it, and let's see if it outputs it. The image shows a bathroom that appears mostly emptied, but not entirely cleared out. There are few items remaining. Blah 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 blah. While the remaining items are few, a cleaner would likely still need to be hired to remove the last of the tenant's belongings. So here's an idea of how you could use ChatGPT. Literally, if you knew a little bit, you could literally just use the ChatGPT API, tell your tenants, hey, submit it in this link, send it to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT will literally just, I guess, to some degree, spit it out to you. This is the state that the person left the apartment in. So that's an example. Definitely be mindful of time. Anybody have any cool ideas how you could use computer vision to predict?
How did you prevent people from sending the same photo that they used when they moved in?
Yeah, so those were some of the guardrails you'd have to build into it, right? And fortunately, as these ChatGPT LLMs get better, you could do something like that. First thing is hey, does this image give an example of the apartment. Hey, does this look like the image of the apartment when it first was first moved in? You could probably force them to use a specific camera, right? So that was one of the things at Get Done that we did was when you took a picture, there was actually a camera app in the Get Done app, and that was supposed to be the incentive to know, okay, when this picture is being taken, it's being timestamped, we know that it's within that moment, right? That's an example of how we did it. Any ideas? Cool CV, cool use of computer vision. Of course, I know I'm putting you guys on the spot, no worries. No?
The autonomous vehicle.
Autonomous vehicle is definitely a cool one, right? So if you think about it, what is it? It's literally, as we mentioned, the computer is looking at pixels, which are just numbers, and it's identifying, imagine you're sitting in the car, right? The top level of your eyesight is usually where the lights are, right? So at minimum, the computer knows always looking here, and if you see something that looks like what is it called? Not lamppost, light, I guess. If it looks like it's green, obviously you can keep going. If it's red, stop, right? Things like if you see something that looks like a human walking in front, based upon the pixels, hit the brakes, right? So that's exactly a cool application for CV, which, as I explained, it's literally just like looking at patterns of pixels and memorizing those patterns. So when the pixel numbers start adding up to this specific kind of example, no, keep the gas or hit the brakes. Anybody else have any ideas?
Scope of work and cost.
Say it again.
You have on the property.
Say it again.
Scope of work. So like, let's say she cracked that countertop.
Yeah.
And it was like this crack. You could replace this, or you could fix this crack, or you could replace the countertop. And here's the scope of work for it, and here's a cost.
Yeah, that's a good example. So on top of, like, let's say if it's cleaners, you could ask them to say, hey, submit an image of the appliances individually. And then you would classify it into, this appliance looks good, this appliance needs to be repaired, or this appliance needs to be replaced, right? That's an example of how you use computer vision classification in real estate. Now, I'm gonna go into generative AI. And the quickest, briefest way I can explain generative AI is you're taking data as input, just like you would with predictive AI, but now instead you're generating new content that mimics the data it was trained on. Generative AI, most people are familiar with it. It's the ChatGPT model, right? It's something that you interact with. Smart House is one of my favorite movies because it combines, as I mentioned, the two things I'm fascinated about, AI and real estate. It's a Disney movie that is kind of dark for a Disney movie, I'm not gonna lie. It's about an AI assistant that is integrated into a house. A family moves in. Should I run it for you guys? Yeah, it's an old movie. It's an AI assistant. If you object to me ruining it, let me know now. But otherwise, okay. But you can already imagine what happens. As you know, the AI assistant, they move in. The AI assistant is really cool. It makes stuff on demand for them. But as all AI movies go, the AI goes rogue. They start thinking it's their mom, and it starts locking down the house, and then they have to hack it and break out, right? But for the first 30 minutes, it is definitely a dream house for everybody. So I wanted to kind of play this video, and unfortunately, this exact scene was the only video I could find on
I was
YouTube.
drawn to work in marketing and
Definitely
SEO.
not. All right, so let's rewind.
Pat, can you look at a menu, please? Lunch menu or dinner menu, Sarah? Let's take a look at what you got on tap for snacks.
Actually, I'm trying to get them to cut down on dinners.
Not coordinated supply database was prepared by a team of nutritionists to ensure a balanced diet for each member of the family. Ben, say something to Pat.
Hey Pat, how's it going?
Fruit and fiber intake in the acceptable range, protein adequate, exhibits tendency to ingest excessive amounts of refined sugar.
I need you to go easy on the sugar burst, please.
Hey, how'd you know all that?
Her atmospheric kitchen sensors act as instant breathalyzers and break down your entire diet.
Wow.
Care to give it a shot?
No, thanks. I get enough grief from my doctor.
I'm thirsty. May I have a drink, please?
Sure, ask Pat.
Pat, may I have a strawberry smoothie? Certainly, Patrick.
Well,
Yum.
good.
Look!
Oh, no, don't worry.
Floor absorbers activated.
Where'd it go? Where all smart house spills go, straight into Pat's floor absorbers.
I could definitely get used to this.
I think I already have.
So you mean we're gonna do it? We're gonna move in?
What the heck? Why not?
Cool. I love it here.
Listen,
So very cute, right? It definitely goes dark. For a while, they're one big happy family. It's very cute. Anyways, so that's generative AI. That's an example of an AI that doesn't just like take input and then provides you with like this one number that you didn't have to make a decision, but an AI that is interactive, right? Now, I'm going to go into examples, and you're going to see that it's still the same thing. It's still just recognizing patterns and making predictions, right? But the only difference is when we talk about predictive AI, it is usually predicting one thing, whether it's a category or it's a number. In this case, generative AI is literally just, we're going to predict a string of numbers. You can kind of think of it that way. So I have this image here of generative AI, right? And what's happening is you present the AI application a bunch of images of people with sunglasses or glasses on. And then you presented a bunch of examples of women without glasses, right? And then you ask it to predict, let's just say, right, predict what a woman with sunglasses would look like. So think back about what we talked about pixels. What is the AI doing? Well, it's looking at the patterns of people who have sunglasses. It eventually picks up that one of the key things about people who have sunglasses and people who don't is that the pixels where the eyes are have bars that highlight sunglasses. It looks at the pixel of women and it understands that this combination of pixels generates an image of a woman, and then it comes out with these different versions of a woman with sunglasses. And as I mentioned, it's literally just like looking at the pattern of pixels and spitting out a pattern of pixels itself. Let's see if we can do this. So some of the examples of the most coolest one I could think of generative AI when it comes to real estate would be remodeling. So one of the key things that people may struggle with is you have this vision in your head of what their remodeling is going to look like. You try to describe it, let's say, to a bunch of contractors, and either you're the person who vigilantly supervises it and catches them if it diverts too much from what you were projecting, or you don't pay too much attention and one day they show up and it's like voila, and it's not at all what you pictured, right? So one of the best things you could do is probably like, hey, here is what my bathroom, here's what my living room looks like. Here are some of the different ideas I have about making it more modern or more, one term I heard was rustic or industrial or whatever. Here's a couple examples. Let me present it to you as a contractor and at least help you understand this is what I had in mind when I said I want my living room to be refurbished like this. And so we can, ChatGPT is not great at it, so let's see if we can use this other software. It's called Revolutionize. It's free. Let's see. How do I upload an image? Okay. Let's use this one. So this is an image that I took of an old apartment living room. Sorry if it's taking some time. All right. And then, what do you guys think? Industrial, rustic?
Glamorous.
You see glamorous? What do you see glamorous?
Middle second row.
Glamorous? Okay, what does glamorous look like?
Yeah, let's see what that looks like. Glamorous.
Glamorous. All right.
Hollywood. What is it?
Doesn't really look that glamorous to me.
No,
it's
more
more like it's just what? Did it just replace the ceiling? Okay, actually no, that looks pretty glamorous. No, look at that. Look at the curtains. Look at that ceiling fan. Oh, not ceiling fan. What do you call it? Chandelier.
Yeah.
Actually, that is kind of nice. Yeah. No, never mind. That's pretty glamorous. Yes.
Well, let's see what industrial looks like.
Industrial.
Let's see the difference.
Yes.
Because that looks pretty industrial to me, except for the chandelier.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Oh, there's the big I'm sorry.
No, you get one freebie.
Yeah, let's see if we can ask ChatGPT to do it like so.
Saw how glamorous you were and started charging.
It heard everybody hyped up about it. It's like,
Yeah,
now, charge it now.
Yeah. It's funny.
That bathroom. So I'm saying, look at the image of that bathroom that we just looked at. Show me what it would look like if the walls were green. Just random. But yeah, as you guys are looking at this, you're starting to get the picture, right? Like these are some one way that you can like use images. Let's say to either remodel the home, or I mean, I don't know if you would need to do it for a full house, or maybe even say for a full house, or like let's say a piece of property. Hey, I want to build an entire house on this land. Here's some images of what I want it to look like. Now, obviously, this would not. That is a completely different bathroom. but the walls are green. So, right? So ChatGPT at least picked up on that and followed that, right? So that's an example. NLP. So that's the one everybody is very familiar with, this ChatGPT model. One of the key, and roughly two things that happen when you talk about generative NLP. The first one is speech to text. And literally what I mentioned is you're feeding the model a bunch of numbers. In this case, it's numbers that represent an audio file, which is the speech. And it's going to in return spit back a bunch of numbers that represent the word associated with every single one of these audio file numbers, right? And how it does that is literally by pattern. You show it a bunch of examples of audio files of numbers, a bunch of examples of a speech as a number. It does the math to try to pick up what formula, when you multiply this number, will give you that, and then it does that. Word completion. This is one of the key things that I think is, if there's anything else I'd love you guys to take away from this, is that ChatGPT is essentially mostly a word completion model. You're feeding it a bunch of words. It is trained on the entire history of the internet, and it's looking at what you said and it's literally predicting what are the words that would follow up after that. It's not reasoning. It's not like us. It's not thinking really deeply what you're saying. It's literally just looking at based upon the words that are here, what are the words that I could predict would follow. Here you have the example. The cat likes to sleep in the. If you were to feed that ChatGPT, this is kind of what you see there in the middle is a neural network, and that's essentially just multiplication. It's looking at those words, transform them into numbers, multiplying them a bunch of times, and then coming up with different probabilities of what the most likely word to follow up. In this case, obviously, it's not zebra, ability, or bag, it is box, right? And that's essentially what an LLM is. It's really weird if people want to talk about these things being sentient because, like I said, there's no thought behind it. It's literally just like this number times this gives you that. So, yeah, definitely not a fan of Her. I don't know if you guys seen that movie, but thought it was super weird. Falls in love with essentially just a bunch of math rules. Very weird. Very weird. I did not sympathize with the guy at all. And I don't know if I have time for it, but the last but not least, the best example of generative NLP is Albatroz.AI. So Albatroz.AI is a company that does two things. It's the speech to text. It's somebody is talking to the AI is transcribing it, and also not necessarily word completion, but guessing what's missing. So if you were to say, hey, I need a space next week, do you have anything available? The AI would understand, okay, this person doesn't mention how many bedrooms they're looking for. The next thing to follow up was, thank you, how many bedrooms do you need, right? And that's essentially just being trained upon many examples. It knows if somebody were to say that and it's missing any indication of the number of bedrooms, the next question that any leasing agent would ask is, how many bedrooms are you looking for? I don't think I have, unfortunately, an example time to go over the demo. It's a beautiful demo. I swear it is.
Well, we can go like 10 more minutes.
Yeah.
If you don't have a lot of questions afterwards, because we have to get out of here by like 8:15.
8:15. I'll present. So I'm going to speed run you through the whole thing.
I think you should.
But let's see if I can do this.
I think you should present.
All right. So essentially, Albatroz.AI. Quick shot. This is roughly how it works. You have a leasing prospect that reaches out via, or in this case, we'll present to you how we do it via email. Leasing prospect reaches out via email, and AI assistant intercepts that. The arrows back and forth you see is the AI assistant talking to the leasing prospect and trying to make sure all the information is captured, all the questions are answered. At the same time, it is keeping the leasing agent in the loop. So right there, I'm just literally speed running through an email being sent. You're going to see here it arrives. It arrives in the leasing agent's inbox. Albatroz.AI has captured all the information missing, all the information available. There's no phone number or move-in date provided. So Albatroz.AI is going to follow up with the questions. In the meantime, it has notified the leasing agent, hey, you just got the lead. Here's all the information that is available. here's what's missing, and I'm following up with them. So we're gonna go into the lead's email. He just got a reply from Albatroz.AI. It says, can you provide your phone number and when you would need to move in? The original message was, I'm looking for a 2-bedroom apartment. Do you have anything currently available? Right? So as I mentioned, it's like, okay, that's enough information, but I don't have your move-in date. The next question, of course, is what is your move-in date? So here, the leasing, the prospect responds. Albatroz.AI gets that information. It fills it up. Once it has all the information necessary, it then looks into the database, identifies that, okay, based upon what you said, here's a unit that fits your description in terms of the unit number, number of bedrooms and move-in date. And then tour in place, et cetera, et cetera. So that's an example of an AI assistant that is using generative NLP to interact and go back and forth with a leasing prospect. By the way, that dashboard, shout out to Hugh for helping me make that dashboard. And so in summary, if there's anything else that I wanted you guys to take away from this, it's predictive AI. Whenever you see that, what is that? Well, that's literally just looking at a bunch of numbers, multiplying them, or doing some mathematical formula to come out with one number. Generative AI, that's very similar. It's looking at a bunch of numbers, multiplying them, or doing some fancy math to generate a bunch of numbers. And in real estate, well, that's where the bits meet bricks. Fan. Any questions?
Are you using ChatGPT in Albatroz.AI?
Yes. So two AIs, popular AIs that you know. One is AWS Alexa, right? So that's basically when somebody's calling. If you were to use Albatroz.AI, that's what you're interacting with. It's a repurposed version of Alexa. For the email, yes, mostly using OpenAI. And I'm trying to think, maybe somewhere I'm using Anthropic. But yeah, generally those are probably the three main ones. Actually, it's OpenAI, AWS Alexa, and then maybe Anthropic somewhere in there.
Are you training it on OpenAI? Or are you training it on using another LLM?
I am not training anything. I am literally just telling the AI, here's what I need you to do, and then it's doing it. And the reason behind that is...
You're talking about there, so you're training that bot, right? To say,
I'm giving it rules. Yeah, so I guess the difference between training versus giving it rules...
Yeah, what are you giving it rules,
I guess it's within the prompt. So within the prompt, it is being told, like you saw how I did that with is the bathroom clean image? Like you submit an image and you say, you are helping the property manager. It's very similar to that. It's in, you're looking at emails that are coming in a property's email inbox. Identify if this email is somebody reaching out looking for a home. If so, you need to identify 5 criteria. If any one of those criteria are missing, you need to respond with asking for it. If all the information is available, then you kick off, let's call it an agent. You kick off the second agent, and that second agent now says, here is the information given, look into the database, and respond with, here's all the properties here's all the units we have available that match what you're looking for. Or, this is a very nice one, if nothing's available in that database for that property, well then look into another property that is in that similar city and try to see if you can pitch that property instead. So it's all about like looking into the database and trying to find whether it was property A that they originally called but there's nothing available. But let's say for that client, that property manager or property owner, they have a property down the street that has a 2-bedroom available. Let's try to steer that lead towards that property. And that's how it works. Yes, definitely. Any other questions?
How easy is it to scale something like this?
So I'm going to, I guess, maybe be a little bit full of myself, but very easy. Literally AWS takes a lot of the heavy lifting of something like this. It's literally, you build it once in AWS. So when you build it on AWS, it's something called event-driven architecture. And the key difference between that and let's say regular software is you kind of build it once and you only get charged every time an event happens. So in this case, it would only be every time an email comes through, every time a phone calls come through, and in theory, AWS, if they've done the job correctly, if I get a bunch of emails, let's say 100,000 emails in one day, it will charge me for 100,000 emails, right? So like, hopefully I've, somewhere planned that like, hey, my customer is going to pay me for that. But realistically, AWS should take care of like scaling it as, the number of messages or events happen. Yeah.
What's the biggest problem you're solving for leasing agents?
The biggest problem that I'm solving for leasing agents is leads coming in late night. You forget to reply to them in the morning, and by the time you do reply to them saying, hey, you have something available, they've signed in another property somewhere else, right? So one of the reasons why I would focus on, let's say, a leasing agent versus like in a house realtor is nobody is signing a house within a few days, right? Like if you call a realtor and they don't reply to you back, it's not like 3 days later you're already signed and bought a $300,000 house. But if you're shopping for apartments, that's very likely the case, right? For a lot of people, it's like within a month before, maybe a few weeks before you're supposed to move out, you're calling a bunch of different places. Some of them reply back to instantaneously and you go visit them. Some take longer, and maybe you're concerned about that unit that you saw available, you sign. And so that manager, like this happened to me in one case, contacted 2 properties. One of them responded immediately. We went to visit that day. Through the sales tactic of the leasing agent, we ended up signing. And I think the other property got back to us a week later. And at that point, I had completely forgot. I was like, wait, you're calling me from where? It's like, oh yeah, no, I already signed somewhere. So that would be the kind of the problem.
I will challenge your theory on that, Charles, because I used to work for Rich Partner Zillow, and the reason Zillow exists is because realtors pick up their phone. The reason they pick up their phone is that there's a non-script thing, so if you call one agent, he doesn't pick up. For everybody, that's the same thing. You call the next one.
Yeah.
They pick up, they sign an agreement. I'm locked in now with that agent for the next 6 months. I can't go anywhere else.
Okay.
So your theory is a good one on that, like in the middle of the night, someone wants to know, are there any units available? But apply your same model to like a Zillow type of thing, that if you could string them along, you get all the information, and then send it to the real estate agent and say, hey, I have all the boxes you needed to check. Because what you're trying to do is replace a human, essentially. Like, instead of having a lead come in and say, hey, call me back sometime, you're saying, I'm going to engage with that person immediately.
Yes.
So that they've now felt like they've committed a half an hour of their time to fill out all the boxes.
Yeah.
That generally a person would have had to do. So now you're committed.
Exactly. And I would add a layer on top of that, in that we're helping triage the communication, right? So paint back that picture again. You're a leasing agent, you show up in the morning, you've got 20 missed calls, you've got 50 messages in your email inbox. Now email, maybe it's easier, you just can screen the title, but it still takes time for you to look through every email to identify, this is a lead, this is somebody soliciting, okay, this is a lead that's looking for something I do have, let me contact them. With voicemail, the main complaint I've heard is people leave empty, bad voicemails, or all you know is this was a missed call. So how do you know, if you got 50 phone numbers, are you about to listen to 50 voicemails? Or let's say of those, 20 of them are just random numbers. Are you really about to call those 20 to identify, hey, were you calling about leasing an apartment? No? Okay, bye. So I would even take a step further in that we're helping them understand who of the people that are communicating with them, who is a lead and who is not, right?
Have you experimented with voice with that?
Say it again?
Have you experimented with voice with that?
Yeah, so this is both an email solution and a voice solution. I unfortunately didn't get a chance to present the voice solution.
Albatroz will call them back and say, hey.
No, so it would respond in that moment. So the way I pitch it is...
Text or email, but not via voice.
No, via voice as well. So like imagine this, somebody calls at 9 p.m., nobody picks up the phone, Albatroz.AI picks up the phone. So within that, it's all about instantaneously, within the moment that you have that person's attention, the AI kicks in. The AI makes sure that all the information that you have to help that person is captured, right? Contact information, move-in date, and number of bedrooms. The AI then responds with what's available based upon the description that they have. We haven't fully built it out yet, but the AI could then answer random questions like, hey, can I bring my pit bull? We do not accept pit bulls. hey, what's the fee structure like? Fees are this and this and that. And so literally within that moment that the person's calling, at least that's how I pitch this, it's not about calling the person back later, it's about, no, when you got that lead in that moment, how do you capture all the information and keep them nurtured? And so what you saw in the example was like, as the AI was interacting with the lead, it was sending text messages to the leasing agent saying, hey, we got a lead here, we're interacting with them, but at any given moment, be ready to step in and close them, right? Yes, sir?
You mentioned the flow of collecting data to then finding a match.
Mm-hmm.
Does the AI actually have access to your database, or are you feeding it, I guess, results from your own?
You know that answer. The answer is yes, it has available to the database, and you are essentially connected to the database. Now, you're not necessarily just free form, hey, just go look into the database, but you're specifically saying, look, this is just a SQL query. It's
right,
not as
you've read the SQL query. It's not writing SQL queries against your own database.
So it is writing a SQL query, but it's filling in the blank, right? So like here's the what do you call it? The schema of the table, right? Here is what you need to look. Create a SQL query. Okay, select unit from property A where unit equals bedroom equals 2 and move-in date available equals September 6th. Spit back everything that you have. If you have examples, put that in email and send it. If you don't have examples, look for properties that are similarly associated with that owner, and that's how it works.
To that point, it is templated. You're not. Someone couldn't say, "I'm looking for JobCall tables, bedrooms." It would go into it.
I should check that. That's a good point. I don't know. I hope not. I seriously hope not. Wow, I didn't think about that.
There's frameworks out there like Instructor and guidance that help like manage prompt insertion to where it can audit the prompt before it gets fed to the API. So that kind of structure and like getting the input side of your kind of IO way to balance out. Yeah, there's a lot you can do prompting just with prompting, especially if you're using system message and a first shot prompt, and possibly even doing like multiple prompts there to structure it out. And you can get really defined in your outputs. You can actually like build some like micro memory, which helps. It's basically just resubmitting the whole query every time in generative AI. So having that like summary piece that you kind of build into a structured output helps a lot with some of the analytics pieces and the memory. So there's a lot you can do.
Yeah, definitely should look into that.
It sounds like right now Albatroz is trying to give a lot of information to the prospective tenant so that they're getting a more qualified lease when they come to leasing.
Mm-hmm.
How much further do you think you could take them down the leasing funnel? Could you qualify them? Could you do credit check, criminal check? Could you get them to maybe even do a virtual tour? I mean, I'm envisaging you could use this to just sit on your phone and just lease the place while you're watching TV.
Yeah, so that'd be awesome. I mean, my thought on something like that is, if you think about the leasing process as a sales funnel, right? You have your prospect in the very beginning. At the very end, you've closed them. And we're obviously at the very beginning of getting that prospect, qualifying them. You think about what a BDR would do. You could then even go, let's call it up the funnel, maybe down, whatever, into like, okay, now you need to promote the property and keep encouraging them, right? You could then definitely do a scenario where, like, so you guys seen this AI pin product? Okay, yeah, so the AI pin, you build something like that, you walk the property, and just like you would have an agent, and long story short, there's definitely a lot of ways that you could do it. The only thing I can think of is this is a space where I believe there's an opportunity for me to get involved and win. There's obviously a lot of people building on this downstream stuff. I'd have no opposition to moving down there, but obviously I'd have a lot of competitors as I'd scale up there. But yeah, no, idealistically, as you presented, the best scenario I could paint to an owner is you don't have to worry about anything. You just can be on your phone, and then the AI will take care of most of it. If the person doesn't need to talk to a human, you just literally get one day saying, hey, you just got a lead for this unit. 5 days later, hey, this lead just signed. Congratulations, that apartment's rented. You have to do nothing. Or maybe it says, hey, you might have to just give this person a call to really close them. And I imagine there's always going to be somebody needed to close people, right? I mean, there's only so much psychological sales pressure, let's call it, that an AI can give you. But when you're there in that moment, and that person's like, this property is hot, you need to sign right now, or this deal goes away, or something like that, I feel like it applies a little more. But definitely there's an opportunity to just keep owning the majority of that funnel.
It's a crowded space. There's 3 or 4 companies that do that already, that are pretty good. That's an interesting spot just in terms of like replacing leasing. It's a weird thing to attack in some ways because it's almost all, it's a very personal purchase, to George's point. Whereas there's much other value that may be unlocked in some other places. But yeah, the leasing side is a very crowded space. There's a whole bunch of startups.
Definitely. Any other questions? No? So with that, fan.
Great job.
Thank you.
Did very well. And probably, or I can send you the link to
the live feed?
Yeah.
Definitely.
So how do you feel?
I appreciate this opportunity.
I have a quick question for you.
You know, definitely great opportunity.
Yeah, it's called Rome as well, so that was good. It's one of these things, you never know if they're going to show up.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm Hug-H.
Hug-H.
Exotic. Yeah, it's a family.
You understood the English?
Yeah, I don't know what it's
I want to know how to train it.
It's different than like a lot of the ones that is also doing it.
Nice to meet you. So nice to meet you.
Is there a different thing that I think this is turning into?
Great job. I know so minimal about AI. That was extremely educational.
Well done.
That's presented information on AI for a general audience. That was awesome.
It's all just numbers and multiplications.
I'm about to go down a YouTube deep dive now because of this presentation, so I really appreciate it.
I would say definitely watch Smart House.
I was about to say, I'm about to watch it again. I've seen it.
Watch what?
Smart House, the movie.
Oh, Smart House.
It's our turn.
This is dark
doors. Yeah.
AI goes crazy. It's like, I'm your mother. I'm like, no, you're not. You're an AI. I'm like, don't you talk to me like that?
Yeah, it's like, don't you talk to me.
It's like, no,
I watch it.
Oh my god.
Then we saw a couple like familiar looking like Disney actors.
Yeah.
Recognize those goobers.
Yeah, I know.
There are more. I hope we get more.
Definitely. I'm going to try to do as many as possible. Most of these guys like, what I'm really grateful for this is like, just off posting the numbers alone, I got that's essentially what I wanted. One, have some friends, just talk about the stuff, but hopefully get a few leads out of it. I'm glad I was able to engage.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, our parking expires. We got to roll. George, congratulations and thank you again.
Thank you guys.
Great work.
Great to see you up there. You did great.
Congrats, sir. Oh yeah? Should we all sit in the front row?
No, I totally agree.
So
when
it's
I
called
grew
Revolutionize.
up there, you know, I lived in the city, I always thought it was a very, I always say that Chicago is one of the most livable cities in the United States. I personally, from an economic standpoint, the best restaurants,
I
I got
It is a whole facility.
we still had that accent.
I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
we still have it. You know, I've done everything I could.
I know,
Since
I was in the lab for 1 year.
I needed to go. I
mostly
mean, I have friends who own clubs.
Well, that's like.
So,
in the left, just
I had
how are we gonna do this? Have accounting operating guys, which is like
So I just texted it. It's a prompt that says, it's basically the right move look for AI. We're never going to hear that.
You can see, yeah.
Too long.
So you have no,
So when I created
I moved there.
It is still beautiful.
No,
it's not because I'm already on it. Have you ever built in my life?
Yeah.
So it's different. Well, it's different. Like this is just mold. It's different. It's really cool. And
We gotta roll my parts.
I don't know what's tear it out. And so this California, North San Diego County,
There's a huge opportunity to make it.
surf place and
Like,
yoga
this
and
is
all
like
that.
something
And that
$30 million
changed, they
years
made
lost,
it
just like people being pissed off about nation.
it's a lot like Boston.
But,
And it's in like,
yeah, I'm,
they made it so
anytime you have a question about something,
Yeah.
go to ChatGPT, plug that in.
Yeah.
There's that, so it asks for, it gives a really defined structure to the output.
Yeah.
There's a literally structure,
years
it's like.
ago, yes, yes.
Give
Well, I
little
worked at
examples,
Thurston
ask me your questions,
Our
just
building.
chat, talk with like it's a person.
Like our
And
building,
then,
that was the ocean. I
you give it
worked in an
subtopics
office
within the
building.
chapters.
Yeah.
I usually, in a separate thread, say, I'm writing a
Yeah,
book
Santa Monica
on this
was there.
subject,
Yeah.
what, for beginners or for experts.
Yeah.
I think for me.
What should the 10 chapters be called?
Gotcha.
And then I take those 10 chapters, and those become my subtopics, and then I just roll through it. And,
It's video based outside.
and it creates a book that then I save it and reference it later.
Yeah.
Oh, I care about culture.
I've learned
That
because
is
it's
like my
talks.
thing.
Yeah.
The
And
textbooks
when I
don't talk
see
back.
Right.
Websites don't talk back.
there
Or
is
YouTube videos don't talk
absolutely
back.
no care
You
anymore.
can ask
They
questions
just,
that
that
like,
Frank
say
Irwin
like, I
Center,
don't understand this, explain to me a
people
different
are
way.
talking about
Yeah.
my friend's son.
Or this is
I
what
remember
I'm
we
working
went
on,
there
I'm
as
trying
a
to build
kid.
a digital
They're
version of
just
myself.
ripping it down.
To
build
buildings.
whatever,
You
to
know,
build more
what's,
hospitals for what?
What route should
You
I
know,
go?
just
Yeah.
because
Thanks for helping.
whatever, and then.
Have you heard of
That, I'm
Perplexity?
sorry,
No, what
to
is it?
rant.
No,
But I watched
AI
this
search
in all
engines,
these
like
cities that I've
Okay.
lived in. And here
Perplexity.AI.
especially,
Ask it about the coach.
Here, it's like, there's
yeah,
no
Coach
sense
Just
of.
say, I
They're
want to
named
build a
that short
digital
time
version
street here,
Yeah.
yeah.
that talks
This
like
was
me
it.
and et
In
cetera.
3
Yeah.
years.
Say, who should I?
Let me grab
Who should I
my
use?
phone.
Because it is.
Okay.
Yeah, but I do
Yeah.
one thing that I
Yeah.
like about living here is I feel like there's always a limit. It's never going to be California. Like there's government here that will put us off. I know there was a huge project, I can't remember what it was
Yeah.
called, but they were going to kind of like cut the river and the lake at some, where Zilker is, and then they were going to build like apartment buildings, and they stopped that.
Yeah, but they
So-
stopped it for now, it's when you're not looking.
That they will come back. Yeah.
I'm not cynical, I'm a realist, okay? I've watched, I've been on this planet longer.
Yeah.
I've traveled internationally, I have friends everywhere. I've watched every city, I watched Chicago drastically change overnight. I watched, seriously,
I
they
imagine.
tore down the entire downtown. The LaSalle Hotel was a classic, ripped it down, built, what I'm saying is everything, classic historical buildings. Here, it's ridiculous.
They
I
did
drive down
Torini
South
even,
Lamar
yeah.
and I'm like, what happened? I moved here when South Congress was still cool.
Yeah.
South Congress was like
Still
weird.
the vibrant place, yeah.
No, it wasn't all these, now it's a Beverly Hills.
It is, it looks like a mini Beverly Hills. It
Yes,
does.
and so what I'm saying is that the politicians here do not care. It's all about money. The old mayor,
Well, of course they want to make
the
money.
old mayor
Yeah.
was a
Adler.
real estate